We have this up to, we have another 40 minutes of a time to go. Feel free to ask the questions. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask in your own voice. And also, what else you would like to hear. Obviously, there are a few aspects of a Zoom the GR is going to cover and address. Okay. So we thought we'll pause here, give an opportunity for everybody to ask the questions. I think each of you can unmute yourself. In case you are not able to unmute yourself, just ping a message. We can unmute you and you can speak. So JR, while we are waiting for that, there was one question in terms of, there are two questions. One is, what influenced your unlearning? A second question is, you seem to have done many different things. How did you connect those different things? Where did you manage to get all that time?
Yeah, footnote on unlearning, I would want to know more about what that might actually entail, because I don't immediately follow it. And a quick summary on connecting things, things that aggregated and evolved over time. An interest in, connections and helping people, came up with an interest in language. I learned when I heard that Sanskrit was a language that pioneered grammar. I thought that was a good origin language to learn because it seemed like it connected and reached into a lot of things. And, in trying to learn that, I picked up technology, and actually I've returned to technology now that I'm a paramedic because there's uses for it there. And it's, for me, everything is, if you think of yourself as an intersection, it's not hard to see how everything connects. Understanding religion is necessary if I want to understand how to connect people, and understanding religion means I have to find a set of terms for how to speak about it that maybe don't have evaluations. You have to believe in God or otherwise you're not religious. What do you say to a Buddhist who clearly lives by high morals as well? So, finding neutral language led me to studying science so that I could find kind of an empirical language to discover to talk about some of the things that religion addresses. And the politics, I got into politics because I thought it was a way, once again, to solve problems and hook people up with solutions. I tried to do that in corporate life with the XML language. So the thread that connects them all is the goal, is, connect things. Even if I don't stay with it, but I find a way to connect with it, it always is, an avenue that can work. Let's see, what do we got here?
Great.
And yeah, if anybody wants to explain on the unlearning, I'd certainly be happy to talk about that.
Okay. Great. Before JR continues, any questions from any of you? Feel free to unmute and ask direct live question to JR. If you are more comfortable keying in, we thought we'll just pause here to give everybody an opportunity to ask you a direct question, and then JR would continue.
JR,
we have 35 more minutes to go. Yes, please go ahead, Manish.
Yeah, JR, your experiences with the corporate world and the learnings from them.
Yes, I'll be happy to jump into that when we reconvene. I will take that as first request, if that's okay with you, Nagaraj.
Yes. Let us gather questions. All of you just.
Nagaraj, I'm just gonna mute and close my camera for a quick minute to stretch and kind of.
Sure.
Breathe.
Great. Yeah. So Manish, thank you for the question. In terms of corporate experience and its impact. So could others, any other questions? Feel free to ask. I think this is a good opportunity to express, because the questions are 50% of a forthcoming clarity. And don't hesitate. This is a closed group. Every question is valued and appreciated.
So Nagaraj, since you're noting it down, note down one more.
Yes.
What next for him?
What next for him? Okay. Sure.
So I have one question. So among all these different roles that you have played, how many of these were planned and how many of these were just happened in your way, in your life? How many of these were planned versus how many of just happened to you and you just came across that and then developed interest over it?
Great question. Could you identify yourself? Who is asking the question?
This is Anil.
Okay. Great question, Anil. Thank you.
I have the similar question, the one which asked by Anil. Like in one of the presentations, he suggested to take always the path in the forward direction. Like there is a door A which I wanted to go, but that is closed. And then I have to choose the other doors for.
What do we do in that?
Yeah. Like how do we overcome the anxiety? Like usually we don't know what is the future.
Your name and ask. That would be great.
It's Bhumika.
Thank you, Bhumika. Yeah. Anybody else? Any other questions?
Hey Nagaraj, one question. Has JR written a book or planning to write an autobiography?
We'll ask him that question. He has written a book though, and the book is on the XSLT and how it can be put to use. He recently sent me a copy of this book, and it had been a good reference, excellent reference during the internet heydays. And if you're asking about a book about his life, we'll ask him.
All right. Thanks. And Nagaraj, this is Piyush. I have to drop off. I have another call starting in 2 minutes, but
Sure.
If the recording is available, I'll listen to the latter part of this.
Yes, we'll be sharing the recording with everybody who has registered. Thank you, Piyush.
Take care. Bye.
Okay. Any other questions from anybody else?
Nagaraj, this is Girish here.
Yes, Girish.
So basically, I had this question: when somebody is facing a kind of constant waxing and waning of passion and purpose, right, in life, how does one anchor himself firmly in identifying one of the purposes and get not swayed away from them?
Okay. Oscillating priorities that keep shifting. Yeah. How do you decide and freeze on something? Okay.
Right.
Great. Wonderful question. Thank you, Girish. Anybody else?
Also, second question that I have is any defined methods or methodologies that he is aware of how to go about figuring out the purpose in life?
Okay.
That's it.
Great. I'm sure Manish would have an answer for you offline. I'll connect both of you separately. Yeah. Any other questions on this?
Yes, some of my interests, like I want to pursue them, and in the short term, I can, pursue them, but it's not practical to pursue it. So I have to work to earn money so that I can do it in the long term. So that in the long term, I'll be able to have enough money to have financial independence to actually be able to do it. So in such a, what would you generally say? I mean, I keep finding myself in this situation recurringly. So I just like to hear your opinions on this, actually. Short term versus long term.
Great. Wonderful question. I'm sure JR would add a lot of value to that. Thank you, Devakar. Anybody else? Any other questions?
We can scoop them up as they come in if you'd like, Nagaraj. Is that good? So we can jump in?
Yes. I think let me just put a consolidated set of them in here, right on the chart, and I'll also put them in here. The first question, let me just read through corporate experience and its impact. You heard that question from Munesh. Another question is, what is next for GR? I'll just run through each questions.
Oh,
What
I was
next
here.
for
I did
Yeah.
hear what they were. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. And the second question is what next for him? The third question came from Anil. How many of whatever you did were planned versus how many of these just accidentally happened and you went with the flow and made an asset out of it? And Bhumika was asking a question, what you mentioned saying, take the path forward, he said, what if my door is closed? That is the question Bhumika had. And then there was a question from Girish about, when somebody is facing 2 compelling priorities or 4 compelling priorities, I'm not able to decide on any of them. All of them are equally important. How do I go about choosing? How do I find my purpose in life?
Hey, Nagaraj.
And, yes.
I've been trying to put together answers in my head. Since we've got them written down, can I start with some of the first ones and then we just go through them? Right?
Hello?
Because I'm getting my brain overloaded.
Okay, sure. I have written down there. There are 2 more I will narrate. You could pick them in the flow as you like. You could continue and you
Yeah.
could pick the answers as you go along. I'll take another 30 seconds. Then there was a question from Diwakar. He said, hey, I always like to do many things. In the short term, I'm able to do, but in the long term, it is difficult. There is always a multiple priorities. There is work, there is job, there is money, there is some other compelling priority. How can I do something on an ongoing basis? How do I balance? And there was one interesting question from Piyush about, has GR written a book? I don't think he meant an accessibility book. I think he meant about your life. Okay, with that, let me pause, continue, and you could address all of these as you come, as and when you deem right in the flow. Okay?
Yeah.
And hey,
Nagaraj.
participants, thank you so much for the questions. Keep your comments coming on the chat window. Thank you.
Nagaraj,
Over to you, Jia.
just to put it straight, the second last question was from Sanjay and not from Diwakar.
Okay. Thank you, Sanjay.
Sanjay and not from Diwakar.
Okay. Thank you so much. Sorry for that. Jia, over to you.
Just hand me presenter and I'm ready to go.
Okay. You are already a presenter. You continue to be a presenter.
Oh, okay. Very good. All right. Didn't know that. All right. So, we had a request for looking at the corporate stuff. So I'll jump into that real quick. Obviously, the Silicon Valley was popping when I got into this in the late 90s. Family had always wanted to move to Massachusetts. And I had done a lot with hypertext and internet languages. So I thought, hey, maybe this is a way that I can work towards an intersection, but also work to earn. And to the one question, I certainly understand that. I would never want to suggest that the priorities of earning and taking care of a family should come, second to some sort of moral or ethical ultimatum. Those are parts of what is going forward. So parts of what is going forward is what's necessary for you to do so, which is taking care of your family and having the lifestyle that enables you to do what you need to do. So obviously there has to be a motivation to earn in that. For me, I've made my choices on how to earn, less on how much I'm going to earn and much more on how am I going to be happy doing this, which was a big reason why emergency medical services worked so well for me. But just a quick touch on that question while we're in here. And I worked with library technology. I actually got invited to do some talks with NASA. But what I really find interesting, and this kind of, and I'll get back to the corporate, but the way I got into corporate was kind of a really kind of amazing event. I'm just trying to jump to where that is because somebody had asked a question that said, what do you do when you suddenly find yourself someplace, and what do you make of it? So just jumping down here. Oops, nope, that's the political me, and that's another one. Well, all right. So finding yourself someplace. One birthday, I was on the Pentacrest, and well, no, we won't digress with that. Let me just find this one question. I apologize, Nagaraj. I just couldn't quite find what I was looking for here.
No, not an issue, JR. Not an issue. Yeah, go with the free flow. No, not an issue.
All right, so that's the one I want. I'm just going to jump to that slide if you'll pardon me a minute. So one of the biggest choices in my life, and Nagaraj, I don't know if you know this story, was a not choice. I was doing academic technology at Emory University back in 1990, I believe. My first job after I got my 1998, after I got my PhD. And I was supposed to fly to Melbourne, Australia to learn some software. And I came in the domestic terminal of LAX, and I had to get to the international terminal. And for some strange reason, I wasn't satisfied with the buses, here you see them, that take you to the terminal because the traffic was so bad. So I grabbed my bags and I was literally walking down the middle of this freeway because I thought I would get there faster by doing this because it was so backed up. Because, of course, this is during internet travel. And, of course, everything was backed up in California everywhere. And so I was about here in the hallway for the international gate. I don't know if this is the exact hallway, but this is at the international gate at LAX. And I looked down at the end of the hall, that door there that you see on the left, and I watched them close the door to the flight for Melbourne, right that close to me, and they wouldn't let me on it. So I got the next flight to Sydney, and then the next flight to Sydney. And again, I was working on an academic technology project for a digital library at Emory University. There was somebody sitting in my seat row with me from Sun MicroSystems. And some 16 hours later, I was applying to Sun MicroSystems. So kind of a funny sort of thing. I don't know if I would have wound up working with Sun or not if I'd have missed that flight. But I often think about how many things in my life changed just with the view of that door closing. So maybe that's a case of where when doors close, other ones open. I'm not sure. But we can talk a little bit more about corporate life here as well. Some of the things that I did in corporate life, this one was an interesting project. I was trying to connect things, and I wanted to find a way to make information accessible. So I did a lot of the background work to make different databases searchable, and I worked on search at Sun. And I got invited by NASA to do a thing called Virtual Iron Bird. This was after the second space shuttle disaster. And they were trying to find a way to virtually build their craft so that they could troubleshoot across all the different competing corporations that had different proprietary laws and so forth like that. So I had this idea of distributed search where I would take a lot of things and kind of dump them into a search engine and run queries against them and fine tune them and so forth. I'll skip past those next two slides because it was an interesting thing that came out of this. So I had these two databases. I had the genetic ontology and I had the web ontology for all of the various cancers, the oncology of cancers, and a drug lookup. And I dumped them all into a search to cross-reference with each other. And I did this back in 2004, 2005, and NASA had showed some interest. For me as a kid, it was kind of funny just to wind up back at NASA after trying to study an ancient language so I wouldn't wind up in technology like my dad did at NASA. And what did I wind up doing? In technology at NASA. So life is full of ironies that way. Sometimes you get brought full circle. So I found out these previous slides here that I jumped past. So functional genomics, this was announced on June 5th, 2018. And functional genomics is basically a project of taking multiple data and interacting the modeling between them. So it's sort of funny, the ideas you come up with. When I first came up with this, the people in the drug companies, Merck and Glaxo, were like, we can't see how we would use this. And then here it is, 13 years later, and it's now what's being used. So that was a fun thing that happened in corporate life. And yes, this is the XSLT book that Nagaraj mentioned. I was working still with some of my Sanskrit learning and the way Sanskrit forms words and reshapes ideas. And some people saw what I was doing, and I just heard about XSLT, which transforms information. And I thought, oh, these are similar. And one thing led to another, and I got invited to write this book, which was ultimately translated into Chinese. And I basically wrote the book once again from an idea of creating intersections. I didn't necessarily want to write it for programmers. I wanted to write it so anybody could use this stuff. Scholars could use it. Small businesses, anybody who's organizations that are trying to help people, who's trying to get their data in a more usable way. So I made it very accessible, and I guess that's why it was chosen for translation. So choices, the not choice that I told you about, that was huge. In the middle of this, I took an opportunity in Sun to take a goal that was, you were supposed to have a goal that wasn't corporate. And so I said I wanted to get my EMT. So I worked at that part-time. Then I came back full-time and did Moody's Investors Service and Disney World website, and ultimately left all of this to become a paramedic. And that was the big change. Once again, to the one gentleman's comment, it was a major financial hit to take, but I also knew that it was something that was in me that I would like, because when I worked as an EMT, I at least saw that I could do it. And I could see the difference in me when I did something I liked and didn't have a lot of money, to the difference in me that I was doing something I had to do and I was trying to make fit. I was always trying to force my corporate life into making that justification that I was helping people and connecting things. And I'm not saying I didn't, but most of what drives corporate life is the bottom line. And now here I am 15 years later, and I'm using that same bottom line, XML, to solve problems in my office side of my work in EMS, because I work on the streets and in the office. But when I was first an EMT, I looked like this. So I had to work really hard to become a good EMT, because I was the guy with the long hair. This is me and my original partner. And we did all these kinds of exercises and so forth. So it was very interesting, but we can come back to that later. All right, where am I at on questions? I've touched on at least 3, possibly 4, Nagaraj. What's up? Hello?
Oh, sorry, Jar, I was speaking on mute. I think you have addressed a few. I'm keeping track. If you want to cover the rest of the roles, like a Politico, whatever is not addressed, we'll come back to them. I will prompt you.
Okay. So a real quick thing on this part of my life. This is another occasion it does answer a question. What do you do when you suddenly find yourself in a situation? And as a graduate student, there was a long period of time where there was no major military conflicts. There was a lot of political apathy. Higher education was moving much more to a grant and research rather than teaching model. The internet was only just appearing. People could do some HTML on a command line and click through it, and that was about it. The web and www just really wasn't happening. I had an upbringing of being active and proactive. In college, I had read a book by Hunter Thompson about the campaign trail 1972. And the old thing, it's not safe for work, folks. Some pretty controversial stuff in there, but very interesting input on politics. And funny thing in my relationship, I was married to somebody who was in a very well-off family. And so I became acutely conscious of the difference between very high-level wealth and everyday life. So one birthday, I was walking back from class, and I was walking across the Pentecrest at the University of Iowa, and it looked like there was going to be a protest. And I was sitting there, and nothing was happening, and there was about 5,000 people there, and I asked, why isn't anything happening? And it wasn't like it was an angry protest. It was a tuition protest. It was students saying, hey, why you keep raising tuition? We can't afford it when you're putting all this money into these other research projects. So on a whim, I got up and I walked up on the stage where there were no speakers yet, and they didn't turn on the microphone. And I just kind of yelled to the crowd, and I said, hey, you want to know why they haven't turned on the speakers yet? It's because they haven't been given permission. And that means this isn't really a protest. And the people who really need to hear this is the president, and I'm going to the president's office to go and talk to him now. And I turned around and walked off the stage. Now, the funny thing was, I said it loud enough that everybody in the 5,000 person crowd heard me. So I turned over my shoulder as I was walking towards where the president's office was, and I saw, about 1,000 people following me. So suddenly I am leading a very large group to the president's office. So you saw this picture as Politico. The wider view is this. So I get to the office. At this point, I'm terrified because I got all these people behind me, and I literally only just wanted to go and say to the secretary, hey, we wanted to see the president. We knew we wouldn't be able to, and then I had done it, and then I would walk home and go home and do my work. But now I've turned around, and here's all these people. So they tried to slam the door on me, and I was wedged in it. So I tried to get through. I couldn't get through, so I pulled my shoulder away from the door where it was being slammed on me. And so they tried to charge me with assault for that because I got hit by a door. Long and short of it is, long legal fight. It was thrown out, et cetera, et cetera. And the outcome of it was, well, I wound up becoming a political leader of a very large budgeted student organization. We did a lot of stuff nationwide. And also I wound up full circle getting one of the very first with all the other regional schools. We teamed up and we got one of the first reductions to tuition hikes ever. So interesting full circle after all of that craziness. And I wrote a whole report on it. We did a lot of other things for victims of assault, for women's shelter. We did a lot of things for people of non-English speaking languages, and it became quite an interesting outcome. One of the big choices I made, though, is right before the tuition thing, I could have pressed harder in front of the media that was there and attacked harder, and I chose not to. And I'll never know if maybe we would have gotten a lower tuition rate or not on that, but I pumped the brakes, and I will always have to wonder, I guess. Also, I was invited to testify in front of the state legislature about, misspending at the university. It was at the same time I was supposed to teach a class, and my mind was, I got into politics to solve problems for teaching. That was the important thing. Teaching was a way to connect people. So I made the choice that my commitment was to my original path, which was teaching and connecting people. And so I did not go and testify. So again, I'll always wonder what would the impact be. But I also found that politics wasn't for me. I've got a stack of over 100 newspaper things. And, there was one day when the liberals called me a fascist and the conservatives called me a communist. And it was just crazy. Everything, my personal life was drawn into it every day. It was in the papers. And, when you're somebody who's self-critical and always challenging yourself and reading how you're perceived in the papers, it didn't go well. It just was not a personality thing for me. So anyway, that's the political side. We did get the tuition thing done. I decided against political direction. I spent a long time trying to ever get back into academia after that because I had only gotten my master's. I hadn't done my dissertation. So it took a while to get back into it, but I finally did. And in the meantime, I did strange things like working for United Postal Service. So let's jump back to Zoom and see if anybody's got questions on any place or if something's come in here.
Yeah. So there are about 3 questions, JR, that need to be addressed. I put one on the chat. Question from Krish in terms of when somebody is facing a vacillation of a mind and oscillating priorities, how do you suggest addressing it? How do you help find one of those and go after it?
So just the first part of that again, because something of the mind.
Yeah. Somebody thinks there are 3 things, all of them are equally important, but they are of a divergent nature,
Yes. Yeah. So that is, that's why I sort of talk about the integration between the life mantras. Many of them are mantras that inspire me to challenge myself. So I look at a lot of times which one is going to challenge me the most, because if my competition is with myself, the one that challenges me the greatest, all other things being equal, obviously, not a destructive goal and not a motivation out of fear, something that goes towards helping people. All other things being equal, the one that is more challenging is the one to take, because it's back to that thing that I said, the more forward you go, the more doors you're going to open. And that's just the nature of things. They may not always be the doors you want, but that's a simple answer to that question. I'll pause.
Oh, great. Thank you, JR. So another question, the question was, I'm able to get started with something on a short-term basis, but I am not able to keep it going because there are constraints. There is a financial constraint, there is a time constraint, there is a priorities constraint. What should I do? How do you suggest that, I can pursue my long-term path?
So, yeah, I tried to touch on that just a little bit before. I'm wondering, is my camera not operating, Nagaraj?
Oh, you are visible.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
You are visible. Yeah.
Not that it's that important. Sorry, I just got distracted. Squirrel. So that is always the challenge, and you remember the slide that I put in a little while back about choices. The intersection and the construction of the intersection becomes more and more and more complex, and this is just the evolving complexity, that we have to deal with. And it's part of why, once again, I try to use the mantras to sort of, what shines light beyond this immediate set of contradictory options and choices. And, how do I meet the basic needs? What things can I give up, and what things are important? It's where the clarity of your goal is so important. And sometimes I just have to circle back and go back to that same basic mark of existence. All right, well, what would I do if I had hope? Well, if I had hope, I'll stretch myself a little bit thinner, and I'm going to try and do this other thing as well, and, see where that leads. And, you kind of keep moving that way is the best I can suggest. I'm possibly not understanding some of the question, but I hope I got it.
Great. So any other questions to JR? I think we have last 10 minutes of the session left. Please go ahead and feel free to ask. JR, I have one question for you.
Yeah.
I know that when you made the transition from a technology, you were heading a well-established technology company as a director. You had a lot of growth ahead of you in the technology industry, which was fast growing, pays a lot, and you wanted to pursue your passion of being a paramedic. And I think you had to put an upfront deposit of 70 to 80% pay cut.
Yes.
How did you gather enough courage to do that? And was it just easy because, hey, JR, you were single, you were young, I'm old, I'm married, I have 2 kids. It is a lot more difficult. So can you address both of those, please?
Yes, and that's why in each of these phases I tried to say a little bit about context, because context is everything. And exactly, it was a possibility for me to do such a dramatic thing because I did not have a lot of financial dependencies on me. It made it easier. I think it would have been a move that I still would have made anyway, but it certainly made it a lot easier to sort of take the plunge and perhaps feel a little less stressed of the gap in earning from what was before and what was after. But you also learn that there's a lot of places you can cut corners and use some of the savings to increase life disciplines and things of that nature. I mean, there's tons of workarounds that people have come up with over the years that I think arguably are better than anything I could suggest here. And it's you just have to see which path goes there, even if you only fit a little bit of it in. And that was what happened for me starting as an EMT. I just tested it. I just tried to see how it was. And I think that when you find what really is a conviction for you, the people around you that you are caring for, they will care for what makes work for you when they see what it does for you to do it. And that's why everything is the context of the people that you're with, because all of these decisions in life, you have to work out with other people. For the purposes of this presentation, I shaved down relationships, marriage, various things that happen throughout all of this that are also factors. And I just did that for simplicity. But it's something that weighed in at all times and was why some of the choices were not the best choices necessarily had I been thinking strictly as a single person. But they were contingent for the sake of others.
Great, wonderful, Jan.
My
Please
turn,
go ahead.
Nagaraj.
Please go ahead.
So, JR, just
Yes.
a very simple question. After all your experiences, learning, and your exposure and learning to Vedas, 2 questions. One is, when a human being is born on earth, why is he born? What is he supposed to spend his life on? Second, is what happens in my life predestined, or I have a choice in the matter?
I love those 2 questions, and they are a perfect jumping off point for a more detailed discussion on the religion and philosophy. And I'm not saying that at all to put the question off, but those are key things, and there is a lot that we can go into on that for certain. And yes, some things are predetermined. Who you're born to is, for the most part, by my understanding of my conscious mind, is a predetermined thing, and most of what science says and what people's experience is says it's a predetermined thing. So I kind of go with, that perspective on things. But then what you do with it is also something which is part of who you are and where you take it. But we can go into that more in a separate session, and that's actually at the core of what we would address in a discussion of that.
Okay, JR. So the last question for this session, we have a minute, is what is your rest of the life about?
So I haven't written an autobiography. This request is the closest thing I've come to putting my story together. Eventually, I probably would like to write more of it and go into depth and find a way to illuminate more of this. And next for me, I've moved a lot with all the different projects I've had working in Alaska as in paramedic work and EMS work. So I kind of want to settle down and have a dog and do some nice things like that. But big dreams ahead is to take some of the knowledge that I have from Sanskrit and go back to India and also see the caves at Ajanta, go to Cambodia where some of the oldest writings in Vedic are still etched in some of the temples, and test my skills on walking up to an old ruin and being able to read them, and continue to work in bringing forward EMS and protecting my colleagues and protecting the communities that I work for. Once you get involved in that passion and that engagement with people, it's a fantastic thing. We didn't do much with my paramedic part of my life, but I tell you this, I have laughed more and felt more fulfilled more often than at any time in my life than I have in the last 10 years since making that career change.
Thank you.
Wonderful. One last question from Mohit. As a teacher, what kind of students, audience you like to teach?
Anybody who will show up. But those who have questions for me, those who will challenge me, those who will, force me to dig deeper, engagement, because once again, teaching is all about that connecting of people, and anybody who, sort of takes part in a class grows it by anything that they put into the class. So, that's really what I enjoy, is the interaction with the people. And the only thing I didn't like here was just that I wasn't able to sort of watch people's eyes across the bottom of the screen and so forth. But yeah.
Great. Wonderful, Jar. This is a great session. Thank you so much. I sincerely appreciate it. I want to go back to one famous Indian movie. It is like it is called a Bollywood with a B standing with a Bombay instead of a Hollywood. All the rest of you, all the Indian participants know about the Farhan from the Three Idiots. You have watched Farhan in the movie, and you are seeing one here in front of you sharing his life experience. It takes a lot of a conviction to take a 70% pay cut. We cry at a 10% pay cut, okay? But it is a cut that you take to leap without the baggage. That's very, very important. In this brief session, I think, JR, you gave a lot of definitions that change a perspective, like honesty is being really practical to yourself, and non-violent is not stepping on anybody's shoes or being competitive with yourself. And, it's about, having no choice, looking at having no choice as a little different thing. They were one of the very nice things. I think NASA to Vedas to technologies to very, very simple grounded thinking. That is really wonderful. To all of the audience here, I think in the invite that got shared, Chiar's link on the LinkedIn and Facebook is available. Feel free to connect. I'm sure many of you here might want to have another detailed deep dive session, like Munesh, who runs the Being a Boundaryless program, and one of his passion is about helping people find the purpose in life. There are going to be some ongoing conversations. I think that would be great. Feel free to connect and interact. And may I request everybody who is in here to unmute yourself and give him a big, I would have said a standing ovation, but say unmuted ovation. Can you please unmute and give him a big ovation? Thank you, Jay.
So, Nagaraj, before we give a ovation, I have an invitation for JR.
Yes, sir.
JR, this is an invitation to you. And I'm inviting you to participate together in creating a world that works for everyone.
I'm 100% in.
Nagaraj will give you the details.
All right.
All right. Now we can.
Thank you, Jay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this session. For the rest of us in here, we will share the recording linkage in a day's time and communicate to each one of you. And JR, that leaves us with one question. Piyush had to leave. He asked the question when I was writing a book. I think you already addressed that. I think, that is going to be valued by a lot of people. Have a great day. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks a lot, JR. It was very insightful.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
About these heists? We Ocean's 11 or The Sopranos?
What's the difference?
I'm only doing this because I have to. Not because I'm a bad
You're
person.
joking, right? Everyone you're talking about is a criminal, including you.
No, I'm not. I'm an engineer. What I'm building is
Important?
iconic.
Look, anyone who's ever accomplished anything iconic in life has had to do some questionable things to get it done. Right? Before my hood, I was a nobody. But with it, maybe a little unsavory, but yeah, I'm unstoppable.
Grammarly provides a bunch of different suggestions to improve the correctness and style of your writing. Different colors denote